Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of material this time.
Yeah, quite a mix. Interviews, observations, data.
Exactly. All looking at sports, but through the lens of fairness, ethics, discrimination, and also how sports can maybe drive social change.
Right. It's drawing from coaches, players, different sports like football, tennis, swimming, even cricket.
And internet sources, book excerpts, personal observations too, like from Dandora.
Yep.
Quite the range.
Definitely.
So our goal here is to kind of pull all these threads together for you, our listeners, synthesize it, find the key insights, give you that quick but, thorough understanding.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Well, let's jump right into discrimination. It seems like the sources show a really varied picture, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That's what struck me immediately. It's not straightforward. Depends heavily on the sport, the place, the level.
Yeah, like you got Coach Brian in Kenya. He's saying in swimming there, no racism, equal chances for boys and girls. Actually, more girls taking part.
Which is, that's great to hear, isn't it? Shows it's possible.
It does. But then contrast that with Coach Osmond's at their school.
Right. They mention this first come, first serve approach, and they acknowledge, well, maybe it's not meant to be discriminatory, but it could end up disadvantaging some kids anyway. It makes you think about equal access versus actual, equitable outcomes.
That's a really sharp distinction. And then the Premier Academy piece.
Right.
They're very clear, no bias. Team selection is purely about discipline, respect, ability, passion, showing up for training.
Sounds like a solid merit-based system on paper, which is, a good starting point.
For sure.
Yeah.
But then you look at Bobby Williamson's experiences, football, past experiences, a different story.
Yeah, he talked about personal insults even, and this thing he called tribalism affecting local coaches' chances.
Okay, and tribalism here means favoring people from your own ethnic group.
Exactly. Based on affiliations rather than, say, coaching skill. He thinks education is helping it improve, but clubs still struggle with it.
Got it. And Coach Elvis, his
Right.
account sounds pretty raw.
It really does. He brings up referee bias, possibly, like sparking fan violence.
Wow.
And deep rivalries causing major tension. And then the really blatant stuff, players facing racial abuse, bananas thrown, offensive names.
Awful. And he mentions the impact, right, on confidence, careers.
Hugely damaging, yeah. It shows how deep-rooted this stuff can be in football culture.
Then shifting gears a bit, Mr. Kinua talks about gender disparity in his football league.
Right. Very few girls playing because of this idea that, football's just for boys.
But they're doing something about it.
Yes. Planning to start a specific girls' league, which is a direct, positive move.
Good. Okay, and cricket. Ronald Bukusi's perspective.
He points to Cricket Kenya and the ICC having strict anti-racism policies. Selection based on ability, supposedly. But he makes that crucial point. Policies don't always wipe out individual biases. People might still hold prejudices. And he also mentions promoting gender diversity, but running into cultural hurdles, especially for women after puberty, limits their involvement.
Right. So it's that gap again between the official rules and what actually happens on the ground culturally.
Exactly. And those high-profile international football examples you pulled, Suarez and Evra, Dani Alves, Koulibaly, Kian, the French players in Russia.
Yeah, those are stark reminders.
They really show that even at the very top, despite the rules and the sanctions, racism is still a very real problem.
It's depressing that it's still happening so openly. And then there's that observation from Dandora. Completely different scale, but just as important.
Yeah, basic access. Kids can't play sports simply because their families can't afford school fees. That's fundamental inequality right there.
Broadens the definition of discrimination, doesn't it? Beyond race and gender to just opportunity.
Definitely. And the historical stuff from the books puts it in perspective, too. Alfonsina Estrada, pushed out of cycling after competing with men.
Blatant gender discrimination, way back then.
And John Carlos and Tommy Smith. Their protests at the '68 Olympics, the huge backlash they faced for standing up against racial injustice.
A massive personal cost.
And Amna al-Hadid, the weightlifter. Facing barriers as a Muslim woman, initially because of rules about clothing, shows how culture and religion can play a role, too.
So yeah, it's complicated. Discrimination wears a lot of different faces in sports.
It really does.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. Another theme that comes through really strongly is ethics.
Yeah.
The importance of it.
Yes, definitely. You see it across the board. Premier Academy, again, they're actively teaching ethics, sportsmanship. It's part of their curriculum, team bonding.
And they have consequences.
Yeah, demotion for misbehavior. They seem to take it seriously.
And Efracheza, Similar focus.
Seems so.
Yeah.
Promoting professionalism, respect, commitment, teaching players, keep calm, support your teammates, building that ethical culture.
Makes sense. And Bobby Williamson, from his coaching view.
He really stresses personal ethics, discipline, responsibility, honesty, essential for a coach. He did make an interesting point about cultural differences, though.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like expectations around professionalism, timekeeping, for instance, might differ culturally even if core ethics are universal.
Interesting nuance. Coach Ellis also talked about ethics shaping the whole organization, right?
Yeah, the culture of the club. He emphasized policies, awareness, needing that respectful environment constantly reinforced.
And Mr. Kenya's definition seemed quite broad.
It was very holistic, yeah. Not just about winning, it's fairness, good choices, playing by the rules, but also like how you treat people, what you eat, even getting enough sleep.
Wow. Okay, so integrity as a whole person, basically.
Exactly. And then cricket, with Ronald Bukusi detailing the ICC's anti-corruption code.
That sounds pretty comprehensive.
It is. Rules against match fixing, doping, financial fraud. They even monitor player communications during games sometimes, really trying to protect the integrity of the sport.
Serious stuff. And that story about Simone Farina, the footballer who refused a bribe.
Yeah, what a powerful example. Refused to fix a match. Became a FIFA Fair Play ambassador. Shows that standing up for ethics is valued, even when it's tough.
Definitely. So ethics isn't just like a nice to have. It seems fundamental across these different sports and levels.
Absolutely central, it seems,
Yeah.
to the competition itself and the whole environment around it.
Okay, so moving from ethics, let's look at the more positive side, the potential for social change through sports. This came up a lot, too.
Oh, yeah. This is where sports can really shine. Afrochesa, for example, they're doing tangible things.
Yeah.
Donating equipment, free training.
Connecting players internationally.
Yeah, giving them exposure, opportunities. But it's also about building confidence, life skills, uniting communities, using football as a real tool for development.
That's fantastic. Bobby Williamson also talked about football bringing people together, didn't he?
He did. Fostering unity, cultural exchange. He sees it as great for personal growth, too. Responsibility, discipline.
But he had a caution, right, about support.
Yeah, that government support often comes after success, not during the development phase when it's really needed. And he stressed education alongside sports. Very important point.
Crucial balance.
Yeah.
And Coach Elvis saw clubs as like safe havens.
Yeah, promoting inclusivity, bringing diverse people together. He linked equality in sports directly to broader social equality, especially gender equity.
And Mr. Kenya's league, bringing kids together from different backgrounds.
That image is powerful, isn't it? Kids arriving in fancy cars, playing with kids who walked miles. Football as the great equalizer on the pitch, breaking down those social walls.
It really paints a picture. Ronald Bukusi mentioned opportunities too, right?
Sports opening doors, travel, meeting influential people. And he stressed how important it is for former players to stay involved, give back, mentorship.
Right. And those examples from the books are pretty incredible.
They really are. Marcus Rashford's campaigns, using his platform to fight food poverty, homelessness, huge impact.
Amazing. And Carlos and Smith back in '68.
Yeah.
Even with the backlash, they raised so much awareness.
A pivotal moment. Then there's Ahmad Hassim, the Paralympic swimmer advocating for shark conservation after his own encounter.
Using his unique story and platform.
Exactly. And Lionel Messi's charity work for kids' health shows the reach athletes can have.
It does. And even on that smaller scale, in Dandora.
That observation really hit home. Football providing an escape, yes, but also identity, hope, something to aspire to amidst struggles. It's more than a game there.
Absolutely. It's genuinely inspiring seeing how powerful sports can be as a force for good.
When harnessed properly, yeah.
Okay, so last big piece. The role of the organizations themselves, the clubs, the governing bodies. How do they fit into ensuring fairness?
Right, the structures and governance. Well, Premier Academy organizes matches, home and away. They work on scholarships, academic support, looking after the whole athlete.
Seems responsible. And Afrochesa.
Their focus is on equal opportunities, individual player development. They want to improve facilities, get more girls involved. Seems like a commitment to fairness from within the club.
Coach Elvis was pretty blunt, wasn't he? About needing to remove bad actors.
He was. Discriminatory coaches, officials. He said they need to go. And he mentioned the penalties FIFA and UEFA can use, bans, stadium closures. So there are mechanisms, even if they're not always perfectly
And
used.
Mr. Kinyu's a league, actively creating that girls' league, trying to bring different communities together.
That's a concrete example of an organization trying to engineer fairness and inclusion through its structure.
Raul Bakusi mentioned Cricket Kenya and the ICC having regulations for fairness.
Hmm. And actively working on women's cricket. His suggestions were practical, too, like post the anti-discrimination policies visibly, make it clear what the standards are.
Makes sense. And the data on FIFA, UEFA, CAF seems like they were trying to increase punishments for racism.
Yeah, stricter policies, stadium closures, point deductions, bigger fines, and that FIFA three-step procedure to actually stop a match if there's discrimination. That's quite a strong statement.
And things like the Kick It Out app give people a way to report incidents.
Empowers individuals, yeah. But then, back to Dandora,
Yeah.
the lack of basic stuff. Boots, jerseys, balls, cones, bad training grounds. That's a fundamental fairness issue that bigger organizations could potentially help with. Access to resources.
It highlights a huge gap. And that Alfonsina Estrada story again.
Shows how organizations can limit fairness too, historically.
But then you have the positive examples, like Barcelona helping Messi with his medical needs early on.
Right. Shows how organizations can invest in athletes and make a huge difference.
So it's a mixed bag, isn't it, with the organizations?
Very much so. Some are clearly trying, implementing policies, initiatives, but there are still big gaps, challenges, especially around basic resources at the grassroots and consistently tackling discrimination at all levels. It's uneven.
Well, okay, as we sort of wrap up this deep dive, it's really clear from all this material you brought together. Sports are this incredible, complex mirror to society, aren't they?
Yeah, reflecting the best of us and some of the persistent problems, too.
We've seen discrimination in so many forms, still lingering. We've seen how crucial ethics are, like the bedrock of fair play. And then that amazing potential for social change, for good. And finally, how the organization's running things. Well, they're part of the solution and sometimes part of the problem.
It's definitely a landscape of progress and ongoing struggles. Depends where you look, which sport, which country.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners to chew on. Thinking about everything we've talked about, the different coaches, the players, the historical examples, the data, Dandora, the big leagues. If you had to pick one single action.
Just one. That's tough.
Yeah, one thing. If it was widely adopted across all sports, everywhere, what do you think would make the biggest positive difference in making sports truly fairer, more equitable for everyone?
Wow. That's a really good question to ponder. One single action. What would it be?
Something for everyone to think about, maybe dig into some of these initiatives we mentioned a bit more.